Hello there. My name is Olatunji Shobodu, and it's my pleasure to be here again this evening. You recall that yesterday I started a series that I titled Tough Leadership. Tough Leadership. Yesterday was the introduction, and I presented the case, that we will be exploring as the anchor for delivering the message over, this series on tough leadership. This is coming to you under the umbrella of Emet Leadership Academy, where we focus on nurturing leaders through the word of truth. Nurturing leaders through the word of truth. So precisely yesterday, we looked at a situation where Jesus was speaking to his disciples, and he got to a point, having said some things, that the disciples reacted sort of negatively to his submissions. We were reading from John chapter 6 and verse 60. And the disciples said, there's a translation that says, many of his followers, when they heard him, they said, this teaching is too hard. Who can listen to it? Who can bear it? Who can stand this kind of teaching? And he turned around and said to them, he knew they were complaining, he knew they were murmuring, and he didn't help matters. He went ahead and said to them, why are you complaining? Why are you offended? Does these offend you? A translation put it differently, and I like this translation where it says, does this make you want to give up? Do you want to give up on our work together? Do you want to give up on our relationship? Our leader-follower relationship. Is that what you want to do because of what I have said? And so yesterday we talked about the toughness of, this situation, the tension that, came into the relationship, so much so that the followers were facing a situation where they needed to make a choice. Do we still want to follow him? Or do we want to review this relationship? Is it time, to go and look for somebody else or to do our own thing? He certainly didn't help matters by asking, knowing that they were not happy with what he had said. Imagine asking them, so do you want to give up as a result of this? Or do you want to go? If it's offensive to you, do you want to go? One translation said, I think it's the Amplified, it said, the followers felt it was a disturbing, offensive statement. It was a harsh statement. Here it says, this is hard. One said, this is a hard saying. I mean, who can live with this kind of demands that the leader is making? So we said, look, if you look at it from the point of view of the leader, it's tough. When you get to a point like that, it's tough. When you look at it from the point of view of the follower, I think that's a lot, more obvious that it's tough as well. Now, what I want to deal with today is who calls the shots. In the leader-follower relationship, who calls the shots? Does the leader call the shots? Or is it the follower that calls the shots? All right, it's like, in the end, who's going to have his way? Okay. And this is interesting because one of the arguments you hear when people talk about leaders is that, a leader shouldn't use his authority. He should learn to build influence and to use influence. And, that's probably a stronger source of power than to use the authority that comes with the position of the leader. And I said in the introduction I wrote that that's both right and wrong. Clearly, when you look at this situation, Jesus was calling the shots. And that's why he would go ahead and say to them, does this offend you? It's like saying, I have no regrets about what I have said. And so if you are offended, please, you have a choice. You can exercise your choice. Don't expect that I would make a change, because I'm not going to change my position. I'm staying on what I said. And so, it's up to you to decide what you want to do. And so he was calling the shots, and he was right to call the shots. The point must be made that leaders have authority. Some of that authority comes by virtue of the position that you are placed in as a leader. And there's a reason that your seat commands some authority. Those who decided to define a responsibility and to attach authority to it understood that you need that authority to fulfill your mandate. It is not enough to give responsibility, it's enough to give the power along with it. Interestingly, do you know that some people complain about delegation and they say that, look, some bosses like to delegate responsibility, but they don't delegate the authority. Why do those people complain? Why can't they just focus on the authority? On the responsibility. If authority didn't matter, the same people will say that a leader shouldn't use his authority. A leader should build influence and work on the basis of influence. But when it comes to delegating the responsibility and holding back on the authority, they complain and they feel bad. And in fact, they lose confidence in that kind of leader who treats them in that manner. The question is, why are they disappointed that authority is not assigned along with responsibility? Because they believe that they need the authority to be able to accomplish the responsibility. And I agree. All right? And I agree. There is empowerment that is required, usually, for you to fulfill your mandate. And that's the reason that for the leader in his position in the first instance, authority is given to him. All right? It is for the purpose of getting the job done. So you can't ask him not to use the authority. You can't ask him not to use the authority. Now, the truth is this, is that for one, it takes a while to build influence with a team. You don't get into the saddle today and tomorrow the team already believes in you, already commits themselves to you, already trusts you. It doesn't happen that way. It takes a bit of time. There are things you need to do. There are things they want to see, in order for them to truly say, okay, now this is the person to follow. What happens in that intervening period? How do you get their job done in that intervening period? They need to know that somebody is in charge. They need to know that somebody is in charge. That's where the authority comes in. You can't ask a leader not to use authority. It's like you have armed somebody with what he needs to get his job done, and now you say, just get your job done. Don't use that authority. I just gave it to you for decorative purposes. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. And that's the point here that Jesus was saying. Look, I'm the one in charge. I'm the one you are following. You either follow me or you have a choice. But I'm not going to change my position. Okay, at least not in this instance. At least not in this instance. All right. So and I believe that it's important that a leader makes clear who is in charge. I'm going to speak to that a bit more when we get to the point where we look at the substance of what he said. All right. But for now, it's important that a leader makes it clear who is in charge. And you don't need to do that out of pride. You don't need to do that by bossing people around. You simply need to show that by the way you stay in control of your team, by the way you assert yourself, by the way that you are firm when you have taken a position. After all, we also often say that the buck stops on your table. If the buck stops on your table, meaning that whatever happens, you have to take responsibility, then you understand that is serious business. So if you need to put your feet down in recognition of the fact that the responsibility for any outcome remains yours, and you don't intend to shy away from it or point accusing fingers to any of your team members, which would be an irresponsible act, by any leader, then of course you must make it clear that you call the shots. The leader must make it clear that I call the shots. In this instance, Jesus made it very clear. Very clear. And that is what it should be. That's how it should be done. It wouldn't matter whether it is right or wrong for him to do that. If you look at it from the point of view of the fact that he must take responsibility for the outcome of every of the interactions, being the leader, then you have to respect his right to insist whenever he feels like that's in the best interest of himself and of those who he's serving. In this case, interestingly, it was not just in his own interest, it was in their best interest. It was in their best interest because his insistence was on the basis of truth. I think I'll deal with that tomorrow, where we would examine what he said. We would examine exactly what was so hard to bear in what he said, and whether in fact, the followers had a justification for reacting in the manner that they reacted. Let me point out something while we're at it, that the leader also ought to know when to put his feet down. Is that, look, there's a thin line between being seen as the one in charge and being seen as a weakling. Okay, because if every time your followers react, express displeasure, all right, don't like one thing you have said, one instruction you have given, one action you have taken, if every time you change, what does that say about you as a leader? It means that you lack conviction about the things that you say, the decisions that you take, or the positions, that you assume on issues. And if you don't come across as one who really is confident about the things that he does, how then will the same followers who now feel uncomfortable, how will they trust you? All right. They also want to see that, they want to see you assert yourself. They want to see you show that you're the one who is in charge. They want to see you take that position, of full responsibility for the outcomes of the interactions that take place between you and them. They want to see it. How does that happen? When you don't come across as the one in charge, as the one calling the shots. All right. So that's another way of looking at it. That's another way of looking at it. When we do come to examine this issue, further tomorrow, you would see the content of the matter at hand, and you would see we'll be showing that yes, this position was right, beyond the fact that the leader has to take responsibility and is within his rights and authority, all right, to insist on a particular position. We would show that that position was well informed, and that what he did, apart from saying something that the ordinary leader will shy away from saying, knowing how the followers will react to it. All right, there's a principle that we can learn from knowing the content of what he said. And that's still not something that you find, with leaders today. That's something that leaders still shy away from, today. Increasingly, you have advocates of leadership that, tends to put the follower in control instead of the leader, all in the name of trying to build influence. There is no way that a leader can really get his job done or her job done effectively without making it clear who is in charge here. There is no way. The average follower doesn't just fall in line, and wouldn't just fall in line either, because we hate to be led, we hate to serve, we hate to be subservient to others, even when all indications are that they ought to be the ones leading us. All right. There is the issue of pride as well, and followers have pride. All right, to see that, what's the big deal? What are you doing that I cannot do? That's fine. So people just don't fall in line. All right. There are things to do to ensure that while you are still deciding whether or not to fall in line or to follow me with your heart, we need to still be clear that I am the one in charge. We need to be clear that I am the one in charge. And it's okay, because there are followers that respect that. Yes, we know you are in charge, and they behave. They may not fully commit to you yet, but imagine if you don't make it clear who is in charge, then you will soon have chaos on your hands, because certain kinds of followers will want to ride roughshod over you. So the leader needs to be the one calling the shots. At those tough moments in the leader-follower relations, the leader especially must be conscious, all right, to take the position that I am the one in charge. That I am the one in charge. Let me add, of course, that that's momentary. It is possible that in due course, it becomes clear that the position that the leader took was wrong. When that happens, the leader also ought to be humble enough to acknowledge that, yes, I didn't take the right position. All right, I insisted on this particular position, having my way. But I had a reason for it, but it's turned out that it wasn't the smartest decision, and I take responsibility for it. And I'm sorry about it. That's okay. That's okay. You know, people understand that. All right, people understand that. When we say that the leader calls the shots, it's not to suggest that he's not, you know, he can make mistakes. It's not to suggest that he may not, in fact, be wrong. It is to say that there are times, because he has a responsibility, ultimately, you know, that there is no scope for discussion, there is no scope for argument. You know, he simply says, well, I hear you. You may not like it, but this is how I want things done on this matter. Okay? So that's why I said it's right or wrong. Ultimately, a leader should not conduct his responsibility by brandishing his authority all around. This is a particular circumstance, and so that needs to be understood. Abuse of authority is a trap that any leader can fall into, and it takes a lot of, you know, maturity. It takes having the presence of mind and being intentional to, you know, ensure that that risk does not crystallize, or that you're not, the leader is not consumed, you know, by pride. But at specific times, we need to know who is in charge. In situations where the people are yet to commit to you, we need to know who is in charge. All right. And the way that you hold yourself out there to take responsibility also helps you to build the trust and credibility. All right. To build faith in you on the part of your followers, ultimately giving you that influence that people talk about. So this is how it works. So that's it for today. Tough leadership. You can appreciate from all that I've said, you know, that it's tough. It is tough indeed. Tomorrow I'll be looking at the issue of the substance of what was said. And we'll be talking about the issue of principle, the issue of truth, and how important they are in the conduct of our leadership responsibility. So be on the lookout for the broadcast tomorrow. And anytime that you have the privilege of listening to this, it will be a great pleasure to read from you. Put your comments or your thoughts in the comments, you know, and we can take the discussion further. Thank you. God bless you. It's Emet Leadership Academy, and my name is Olatunji Shobodu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.